Thanks for this opportunity. Last fall, Bill Haynes did a workshop with his students, his student teacher students, and focused on tribes. And one of the things that he asked us to do something with LCSC's relationship with our tribes, but then also part of the Idaho Indian Education Committee representing LCSC with the committee through the state board. And so talk a little bit about that, but then also talk about the tribes that are a part of the Idaho Indian Education Committee, and I'm part of the state of Idaho. So just I think from that, just like Rachel was saying, you know, in terms of it being recorded, I'm usually behind the scenes. I'm not in front of the so in terms of presentation. So if you got any just things that you can offer to me in terms of what's presented and how to best present it, it's kind of jumbled, I think, but we'll get through it. But I think those are kind of the three areas that we will talk about a little bit about the different tribes within Idaho, but then also talk about our state Indian Education Committee and, you know, what our goals are a little bit, and then kind of end up with where we're at LCSC and just our relationship with the Nez Perce Tribe in particular. So just I think that'll be the process. And so, but you know, any questions along the way, definitely ask them. So. Okay, so just have a picture. I thought it was a little, little more recent, but little dated there. In terms of my family, that in Nez Perce way, usually when a person is kind of presents himself or herself, they kind of tell where they come from, who they're from. And in terms of, you know, my parents are Bob and Loretta Sobotta, and you might have seen an article about our family the other day. But my dad's Polish German descent. Met my mom, who's a Nez Perce tribal member and in the community. My dad's family ran a restaurant and bar down on Main Street, Lapway, and my dad was born on Main Street, Lapway, and my mom was both born in houses, I guess. You know, I was born in her house in East Kamai, and as a Nez Perce tribal member, but both very involved in education. My dad was superintendent, principal, elementary principal, English teacher, worked for the State Department of Education, worked for Idaho Catholic Schools, worked with Coeur d'Alene Tribe, worked with Wacaco School District, but most of his years were in Lapway as well. And my mom worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and so her job was to support students in terms of Joyce McFarland's role right now in terms of funding students. Her job was to fund students not only on the Nez Perce Reservation, but the Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai reservations as well. So they called it the Northern Idaho Area Office, and it was in Lapway, and so that's kind of where she was based out of. And so both very involved in education, both LCSC alum, and but then also my family there. My oldest, Peyton, is at Big Bend Community College, and my three daughters, and Glory, Grace, and Faith in the Lapway school system, and my wife Angel is working on her doctorate up at University of Idaho. So just busy in the education part. That just wanted to start off with that. And, my grandparents on my mom's side are from the Samuels and Corbett families. You know, Joe and Paul and Samuel. So yeah, with that. Okay, so if you have a little, if you guys can maybe use a little sticky or something, I want you guys to kind of draw Idaho map. And Let's see if we can do an individual effort first. So, who are the 5 federally recognized tribes, and then place them on your map? I don't think any of Bill's teacher ed students got all 5. So,
we aren't even, we have to do it live.
Rachel, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Because I can't hear anything that's happening. I don't know if I'm muted.
Let's see here. Can you hear me right now? Let's see here.
It's like a very, so where?
Let's see.
No, I think it's.
I'm in trouble.
Is it, you mean it's more like over here? Like a really big circle.
Hi, Karenza.
There must be.
Let's see here. Why are you doing that?
okay, we're back here.
Okay. We can hear you. Why can't you hear us? Can you check your speaker?
Which one? I'll just make a really big circle.
Okay.
Is it not? Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Let me go back to screen sharing here.
All right. Let's have our misery.
Okay. So,
There.
yeah, Bonners Ferry, Idaho. Location there. Kootenai Tribe. Okay, Kootenai Tribe of Idaho. Okay. Plummer Worley area. Coeur d'Alene Tribe. Here, Minicum, Lapwai Kamiah area. Lini Poo. Okay. The 4th one.
Duck Valley.
Okay, Duck Valley Indian Reservation.
Not working.
Do you want the next slide?
Yeah, if you can get the next.
See if I can figure it
Yeah,
out.
Duck Valley is, if you've driven from Mountain Home to Elko, okay, between Mountain Home and Elko, 80 plus miles between Mountain Home. And so the Duck Valley Reservation is, yeah.
Did it not?
the map.
Oh, yeah, the map.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one.
Yes.
All right. So the Duck Valley Shoshone Paiute Reservation is just half in Nevada, half in Idaho. And I'll show you another map in terms of the relationship. So in terms of their K-12 system, they're Idaho, but they're also Nevada. They're schools in Nevada, and so they're part of the Hawaii combined district. But they also, have students that are actually living in Idaho, and so they kind of have a dual residency in terms of coming to school. A large number of students from Duck Valley do attend Boise State quite a bit, and then also UNR are probably the two where they end up. And then the Shoshone-Bannock Fort Hall Reservation in the Pocatello area. and Pocatello Blackfoot area. So those are our 5 federally recognized tribes. Also within the Pocatello area, there's the Northwest Band of Shoshone that are not recognized, not federally recognized. Okay, so but they have an office there, but then also an office in Utah, my understanding. So 5 recognized tribes there. Okay, so next one. Okay, so each of the tribes, just in terms of just basic information, just some links in their websites, and you know, one of the things I think in terms of their tribal flags is just the aspect of, you know, circle, I think being important within each of the flags, but a lot of great information on each of the websites that you go to in terms of, you know, culture, history, departments and programs, and people that if you need to contact different people about, you know, different, be it presenters or be it just, you know, just questions about the tribe or what they might have to offer. I think that those are all real good links there for you. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so just wanted to have one little piece about each tribe that wanted to let you know. The Kootenai Tribe of Idaho was basically created in 1974. Okay, so it was created in 1974. If you looked at their flag, there were seven feathers. There's 7 bands of Kootenai. 5 of them are located up in Canada, but then also one in Montana, the Salish Kootenai Tribe. The Kootenai people that were living in the Bonners Ferry area refused to go to Montana. Okay, they refused to go to Montana. In 1974, Amy Trice, a lady that she declared war on the U.S. And in doing that, they basically started negotiations with the U.S. to, you know, to create their own reservation, their own land and whatnot. They were granted 12.5 acres in 74, and right now I think it said they have about 250 acres now that they, through grants and purchasing and whatnot, that they're able to create a reservation, but very, I think, forward thinking in terms of, you know, their sturgeon. They have a sturgeon hatchery. They have another fishery hatchery that they're very involved in terms of their environment. Their Kootenai, they have a casino. I've never been to the up there to their casino, but they've got a casino. Their tribal membership, I think at that point in time, was about 70 people. It's about 170 right now. So it's grown a little bit, and you know, just the part in terms of them, you know, hey, we're not leaving. We're gonna stay here even if we don't have a treaty or, you know, any situation here in terms of support. But Amy Trice did that. But this, if you probably on YouTube or even just Google Idaho's Forgotten War, there's a 54-minute film that you could look at just in terms of that history about the tribe. And within our Idaho Indian Education Committee, we rarely see the Kootenai tribe just because of the location. Bonners Ferry to Spokane to get a flight and then fly down and then go back. And so they stay in touch with our Indian Ed coordinator in Boise, but, you know, we don't really get to see them a whole heck of a lot within our Indian Ed meetings. So, okay. So.
Did the Kootenai tribe, was that movement along, like a lot of movements during the late 60s and 70s, like taking over Alcatraz Island? Like there was a lot of things that were going on during.
Part of that is
okay.
Russell Means is, you know, I think involved, you know, visited with Amy and visited the reservation as well. So he was very well known in terms of being a part of AIM, and so.
Right.
So yeah.
So the AIM movement was kind of.
I think they were in touch. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Coeur d'Alene tribe, just the one part here I just thought was really good. The quote, The person that's sitting in the chair is Ernie Stensgar, and he's again their tribal chairman. Chief Allen has been their chair for a number of years, but Ernie has stepped back into that role as well. But just this quote kind of talked about them having a Supreme Court victory granting them the southern portion of Lake Coeur d'Alene, and just how they've been recognized and featured. But Ernie says we have people with vision, and I'd like to think I'm carrying out that vision. And I like that part there, that knowing Ernie for a number of years, and knowing a number of people from the Coeur d'Alene tribe, they're very progressive and moving forward. Not just, we think about them in terms of the casino and the business end of it, the part in terms of the environmental aspect of knowing that they're all about the Lake Coeur d'Alene, and that connection to land. And that relationship, I think, is really important. But they're also their social programs, if you know, in terms of the Benoit Medical Center, it's not just for tribal members, it's for whoever walks in that door. And I think that's just something in terms of the community relationship that I really appreciate and respect about the Coeur d'Alene tribe. Okay. And then in terms of Nez Perce Tribe, I think we have a lot of great resources within the valley in terms of knowing and learning about the tribe. But I think the Tribune, the Ninipu Tribal Tribune, that within our own tribal paper is something that's people, before we get a handful of copies in different buildings on campus, but anymore it's pretty much online. But if you went to the Nez Perce website, that has a lot of great information and just a lot of different things that the tribe's involved in, politically, but also the social, the athletic, there's a lot of, kind of sad to say, but, paying for an obituary in the Tribune is kind of costly. You see them here, but you don't see them in the Tribune and stuff. And so that part there is just really important for us, I think, in terms of having that resource there. So just wanted to kind of point that out, that's something that I was thinking about that is kind of underutilized, that is a good support system for our tribe. Okay. Okay, and then the Shoshone Paiute, the aspect of the Shoshone Paiute and the Shoshone Bannock is, again, in terms of the treaties or the executive orders that created the reservations, the Shoshone Paiute, were known to kind of be this way instead of, this way, that, kind of battling a little bit and kind of being foes and whatnot, but in terms of the being put together, okay? And so they're put on a reservation together. But the part there, I think, again, the connection to land is, the part where they were placed. Again, 80 miles to Elko one way, 80 miles to Mountain Home the other way. But, you go into that community and it's just a very close-knit community now. And, definitely tied to the different fishing on the different reservoirs and ranching. And again, just ties to the other Paiute. There's a number of other Paiute tribes in Nevada, along with very close with the Shoshone Bannock in Idaho. But I just, again, the part in terms of being in two states and dealing with all of that legislation. You see tribal headquarters is listed, is in Idaho. And then Oahu's down here, and that's kind of where the school is and whatnot there. And that's just a matter of 5 miles in between the two. And so just those connections there in terms of them needing to be in Boise to deal with the legislators there, but then also needing to be in Nevada's capital as well. So that's that. I thought that was important there. Okay, next one.
Bob?
Yeah.
was the student we had from Duck Valley? Philip?
Paradise.
Paradise, that's right.
Yeah, he was teaching out of school just outside of Elko. Now he's back in Oahe with his family, creating a family now. But he's just substituting right now in terms of just not enough teaching jobs or whatever.
So he's
I think his
kind of
degree was in Kines, and so I think whoever's teaching Kines, he's
kind of waiting for
we'll
something.
have to wait for somebody to retire or leave or something, or maybe
Die.
do that. But yeah, yeah. Then Shoshone-Bannock tribes. I just had this in terms of with the reservation again. Nez Perce Tribe, Shoshone-Bannock tribes were created through treaties. The other tribes, again, 1974 created for the Kootenai, but Coeur d'Alene and Shoshone-Paiute were created by executive order. So, you know, not all tribes are treaty tribes, so a little bit different. This was created, again, the Shoshone-Bannock, the Bannock, another name for Bannock is Northern Paiute, so Paiute people also part of this reservation. But just the part in terms of going from a survey error, the reservation went from 1.8 million acres to 1.2 4 years later. And so, and again, kind of like Nez Perce Tribe, the reservation was reduced again through legislation and then allotment process. And then I had the bottom one, that welcome to Fort Hall. I was thinking Sequoia might be here, but Sequoia was Miss Chauvin when she was younger, so I thought that was good. But that was showing one of the Miss Chauvins from current. So just 5 little points about the tribes of Idaho there. Okay, and then just real quick, this is just a kind of a from our state Indian Ed, just kind of looking at historical timeline in terms of tribes throughout the country. Just looking at different time slots and whatnot of the colonial period, removal reservation, and treaty period in the 1800s, allotment and assimilation. Allotment, again, remember, just kind of use the Nez Perce reservation. You know, our reservation's considered checkerboard in terms of allotment. Non-tribal members during the allotment in the late 1800s could come in and, for farming or for, whatever purposes could be allotted a certain amount of land. And so within the reservation, I think the tribe owns about 20 to 25% of the reservation. So all of the other pieces are, different farmers and whatnot that were granted land through the Allotment Act. And so just that assimilation into society. Indian reorganization period, I think that's kind of the big part there, is just creating our own tribal governments and kind of taking a leadership era there. Termination period, 53 to 70, where some tribes negotiated, the U.S. negotiated to, Klamath is the one I'm thinking of, tribes that were terminated for a bit. They're re-recognized now down in Klamath Falls area, but that took place. And then now just self-determination period, where tribes are tribal governments and trying to, work as a sovereign entity with the federal government, with the state governments on a one-to-one basis. And so that's just a real quick there. And that's from NCAI, which is National Congress of American Indians. And then this was just really important, I think, for Bill's class, just in terms of asked the students what a boarding school was. What is a boarding school? Okay, and a lot of the students weren't aware of what a boarding school was. But just kind of a picture in terms of the top picture is when people came in, and you kind of see the difference in terms of having their own particular dress and their hair, and View is an awesome site. We had a presenter a couple years ago that came and talked about the Carlisle project, but the Carlisle project, Carlisle Indian School was was in Pennsylvania, and Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and Captain Pratt killed the Indians to save the man, basically assimilating, trying to assimilate them to become farmers, ranchers, businessmen, etc. But just the part in terms of Nez Perce as an example, the part, if you click on this Carlisle, Indian, and Dickinson, there are over 120 Nez Perce people that ended up at Carlisle. Okay, and so the first group, I think we heard Robbie Paul last year talk during our awareness week that her great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather was one of the, after the Nez Perce War, they went to Oklahoma, they were exiled to Oklahoma, and instead of coming home, some of the kids were sent to Carlisle Indian School in the early 1800s, and so that transition process that just really reinforced that to our students in terms of the boarding school, and so that's just one of the different aspects in terms of education and that transition for all the way. Yeah.
It's just a question. Can I go through these and take the links and put them on our webpage? Okay, and so they'll be accessible webpage that you can just click on. That's okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Next one. And then Indian education in Idaho, like I mentioned, part of the Indian Education Committee within the state. And, our focus again is K through 20, and actually pre through 20 a lot of times, in that we're working with the tribal education departments. Always effort in raising the bar, eliminating gap of academic achievement for our Native American students in Idaho. And so, okay, go ahead. The history of Indian education in Idaho, a few things here. Just in 1948, there was some legislation that happened that created an Indian education program. Okay, and then 1949, some of you that are involved in K through 12, the Johnson O'Malley is kind of the support for Indian education, if you might know that. But so was accepted as a division of the State Department of Education. But so from 1949, even though there was legislation, there wasn't ever really a person that was able to kind of be integrated, I think, into the State Department of Education until 2007. So our first Indian education coordinator was hired. And Harold can't answer this, but who does anyone know who the first Indian education coordinator was? LCSC alum, Mary Jane Oatman Lackback. And so she was our first Indian education coordinator. She served for a couple of years and took a different position, but yeah, so that was created there. In 2013, our Indian Education Committee became a committee of the board. I think since I've been here in the early 90s, we've been a part of different Idaho Indian Education Committees more through the State Department, but 2013 became an actual committee underneath the state board. And so I think that's something that we've been able to have direct access to, having the Dr. Clark, Linda Clark, and Bill Gosling before that as part of our committee, and that's been a real support for us, I think, is having that direct connection as well. So, okay. And then just kind of a quick breakdown. All of the four-year institutions, the two-year institutions have a representative on the board, and then the tribes have two representatives from a designee of the chair or a designee, and then also K-12 representatives from the different reservation areas, and then we have two BIE schools within the state, and then along with the State Board of Education. This is a little old because Brumfeld's not there anymore, but Dr. Clark is still serving as our state board representative within our committee, and we just had a meeting this past week. And so that's kind of where we're at. And Johanna Jones is our coordinator for Indian Ed at the state department level, and Patty Sanchez works for the state board as just kind of a support person from the state board on that. So just, yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but some states have tribal colleges. Is
Yes.
that ever a thing here in Idaho? Like I know Montana has.
Yeah, they have a number of tribal colleges. Actually, within Lapwai, Northwest Indian College
Okay.
has a branch, and Northwest Indian College is based out of Bellingham.
Uh-huh.
So, and we have a branch,
Yeah,
a few other reservations have a branch, and so people actually can get a 4-year degree right out in Lapwai
Oh, okay.
right now. So, in different areas. Our goal is to, we do get a few students transfer after the 2-year degree from Northwest Indian College,
Oh.
but a lot of them are looking at their 4-year degrees as well, and doing classes right out there. So. And then just our 2 goals focus on within our strategic plans, American Indian academic excellence, and then culturally relevant pedagogy as well for both areas. And I really appreciate, I think, Dr. Bisbee, Dr. Clark, Dr. Meyer from the Coeur d'Alene Tribe, just in terms of really kind of getting us to think more in terms of being culturally relevant in what we're doing within the K-20 and really pushing and promoting that to not just schools on the reservation, but throughout the state of Idaho, because it's not just for Native students, it's for all students. And then also one of the other areas from the State Department of Ed through Johanna Jones, one of the big parts, and I'll kind of pass this book out as well, is this United Voices, Awaken Cultural Understandings of Idaho's 5 tribes. But this is a book that I think Johanna still has a number of books available, but kind of the focus that we want in terms of essential understandings, especially for our, K-20, but Johanna's really focused on K-12 in the State Department, is just, who are the 5 tribes, and that there's diversity within those tribes. And then just the federal and state legislative policies that are a part of the different reservations and the different tribes, and how our Nez Perce tribe is going to be different than the Kootenai tribe or the Shoshone-Bannock in terms of the different relationships that each tribe will have with their own sovereign entities in terms of working with tribes. Our federal government or state government will always be a little bit different, and then just the governance within each tribe that is a little bit different and unique and fitting their own aspect. But then also, what is sovereignty? And then again, also just ending, just overall Indian education that we are promoting, learning about our Indian tribes, and not just within the state of Idaho, but nationally as well, in terms of this essential understanding. So just the part of being on that committee, being on different standards to kind of look at, be it history or be it government or different standards that maybe going through to be able to have a set of eyes. It's been a nice blessing to be a part of that. So. And then just conceptual framework within that, and that's from McCarty and Lee, a book that again, the people I mentioned are kind of our academic leaders in terms of what we're focusing on, understanding expression of indigenous sovereignty, a need to reclaim and revitalize what's been disrupted and displaced by colonization, and a need for community-based accountability. So those are some of the principles that kind of help lead us in terms of our goals there. So, good. Okay, and then just FYI, in terms of, these are schools that have 30% or more American Indian students within the state of Idaho. So Lakeside just has their high school and middle school. Blackfoot High School, it's surprising that they're 30% Native. Independence High School, Blackfoot 6th grade, Fort Hall Elementary, and then Highland. I don't know that those, I have to relook at that. I don't think they're 30%. But Pocatello area, and then Lapway High School, Lapway Middle School, and Lapway High School and Elementary. I think our is right around 85% Native students in our Lapway School District. And so just FYI on that. And then just kind of a little bit of just a summary in terms of what the acreage and what with the 5 tribes would be ranked 20th in land area, jobs, one of the top 10 employers in the state, the sales transactions from tribal economic activity would exceed 1.1 billion, and the tribes donate 2.15 million to Idaho charities and schools. And that's a little older, 2014, but okay, just a little bit of how the tribes are involved within the state. Okay, good. All right, and then just LCSC, LCSC's relationship with the Nez Perce Nation, and in particular, again, just our three-part area. Academic, career, technical education, and then also community programs. I think the LCSC, all 3 areas are very involved within the Nez Perce Tribe. And community programs, as an example, workforce training are doing a number of different trainings and workshops, and creating relationships with the Nez Perce Tribal Enterprise and other departments within the Nez Perce Tribe to support employees out there. And so that's, they're not actually students, but they're actually going through different trainings. And then also the two programs, again, the academic and the CTE programs as well, are different areas that are of importance as well. So, yeah. Okay, so some of the areas, some of the different things that we do have on our campus that have kind of been agreements at state level or within our institutional level. We have the Nez Perce technical waiver. And so if you're not aware, 1969 state board created signed an agreement in terms of that any Nez Perce tribal member would be able to take classes on the technical side basically for free, and also created a van transportation or a transportation system between the reservation and LCSC. And those are the two main components with that. And so that's been since 1969, so that's over 50 years now that's been in place. And that, so in terms of supporting technical students, that's something that's been a great opportunity for our Nez Perce tribal members. We have MOUs with the Coeur d'Alene tribe and the Nez Perce tribe. Our first was with the Nez Perce tribe, and then a few years later with the Coeur d'Alene tribe. President Pemberton hosts 2 meetings annually, one in the fall semester and one in the spring, with the Nez Perce tribe and the Coeur d'Alene tribes. And we work in terms of areas of mutual benefit, and always great discussions in those areas of where we can collaborate and where we might be able to do better at too. And then the university college collaborations and services to tribes. It's the interinstitutional MOU with 5 institutions. So between Wazoo, U of I, NIC, Northwest Indian College, and LCSC, we have a group that meets. We try to meet a couple times a year as well and talk about our focuses, our native studies, of course, and then Native services, student services as well. So, how am I doing on time?
Let's see, it is,
Quick question.
Yeah.
How many students usually do we have on an annual basis on the technical waiver?
On the technical waiver, I think this year, I had to do a report for the state board meeting. And I think between fall and spring, there are 23. Okay, so, but we love to have that higher. A couple of years ago, it was much lower. So, but you know, we're hopeful with the new CTE building to try to integrate that even a little bit more. So,
and that is Curacao.
oh,
So,
Curacao?
Yeah, so you're doing, yeah.
So yeah, and then just in terms of the collaborations, Eastern Washington University has been asking to be a part because they kind of feel separated. They'd like to be involved. They have a new director of their Native Student Services program, and you want some support, I think, from other institutions to kind of create some relationships, and then also their Native Studies program, I think, is not as strong as it had been in the past. And so we'll see how that plays itself out as well. So, okay. And then just some of the successes I think the main things are just the networking and that is happening within our institutions. Establishment of our committee with subcommittees, bringing students together. We just had a stick game tournament in Lapway this past weekend, and I guess U of I won. So, misidentification of Native students, that's just something that we talk about in terms of just different levels in terms of tribally enrolled members, descendants, people that just mark their Native on their application, and just, I think, trying to get a better idea who our students are on that end. And then that last one, this hasn't been talked about for the last few years, I think, in terms of budget and then just the distance and just the logistics. A Native Studies degree has been talked about trying to create something to that effect within the institutions, especially U of I and WSU having the most classes and the most resources of trying to create something that not to that level, but it's still, we're not throwing it away. We still want to keep it on in front of us, that we keep looking at that. So those are some of the areas that where we're involved in like that. And then some of our highlights in 2005, our Piankan-Was American Indian Center through a grant through the Education Division and Bill Hayne, were able to create that, and then just appreciate that blessing of having that opportunity. I think another nice blessing this year is Harold's held most of his classes over in the Piankan-Was, and so just having those students there during that time to be able to utilize it and kind of create relationships, but having that Nimi Putent spoken there is important as well. And Nez Perce language minor, one of the things I think it's still relevant unless Northwest Indian College added Nez Perce as a minor, but LCSC is the only place in the world that you can get a Nez Perce language minor, and so that's a blessing, and we're appreciative of that as well. So that's something I think that we're the only ones that can say that. so I like that. And then just our Native American Awareness Week. It's hard to believe it's 33 years that we're, and so thankful from the president level on in terms of the support and all of you for bringing students and bringing classes and bringing ideas and other thoughts to be able to do that for 33 years. And so that's, I think those are a few of the bullets, areas that I think are in terms of highlights that are creation with the tribe. So, and Native American awareness, and just a few good pictures. And John Trudell, if you remember when he was here, he wasn't here during Awareness Week. I think he was here the week after. but he is part of the humanities. through the-
Roselle.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
near the
yeah.
Communities Fest.
Yeah, through the, what'd you say it was?
The Rose Hill.
Yeah, the Rose Hill Estate. So bringing him onto campus, and so that was just awesome to have him. But then also the play that was did, I think that was a really awesome opportunity that this on the right with Angel and Steve Jake there and the other Sarah Hennessy and whatnot, and then Bill and elders panel there as well. So.
I see you have the schedule for next.
Oh, I do
week
have,
there.
yeah, I didn't make any copies, but the schedule's out, it's on the website, and looking forward to it. One of the things in terms of education, Bill Hayes gonna be hosting it Wednesday at 10:30, educators panel from Nez Perce, Coeur d'Alene, Umatilla, and Shoshone Paiute tribal representatives that are going to talk about education, just kind of a little bit in terms of what I asked was, hey, what's kind of been that progression of your students in terms of, were they sent to boarding schools? Did you have your own boarding school? That K through 12 system. Leroy Seth, as an example, he talks about going to school in Spalding. Horace Axtell, when he was alive, he talked about going to school in Ferdinand, or maybe even a smaller little community than Ferdinand. And then going to Winchester or Rubens is the big school. so just, those kind of things in terms of that part. So I'm really excited about that session as well as the other sessions, but I think that's good. Okay. And just, a couple of things, our club's been very active, I think, and just really appreciative. I think our clubs, just like a lot of the other clubs on our campus, in terms of we're really fighting to find members or a right time to have a meeting and whatnot. Last semester we had maybe 10, 12 students. We were happy. This semester we have 5. And so that part, we're just like the rest of the institution. I think, what's that draw in, but to get that. But Awareness Week is something that the 5 or 10 that make the meetings, but then also you get the 15, 20 other students in there. Well, I can't make the meetings, but how can I help? So that's kind of the neat part there of having Awareness Week. And then our alumni chapter, just from our Nez Perce Tribe, we've got a number of people within our community, a number of leaders. I think within our tribal executive committee, 3 or 4 of our tribal council members are LC alum. And so, and then you see Kermit in the middle with the white hair there. So, Kermit Mankiller, who's our executive director, but just a lot of neat people that have been through all of these buildings for a number of years. And I think at the, you look at the picture on the newspaper there, Leroy Seth and Jess Tilden, basketball players in the 50s as tribal members, but David Miles Sr., who taught Nez Perce language in the 70s, he was a captain when they had a football team here in the, 20s or 30s or something like that. And so that relationship has been here. So I think that's really important in terms of alumni. And then just a few bullet points in terms of our tribe's relationship. In 1909, integrated Lapway School. Lapway School was integrated, first of its kind in the U.S. And then just a point there, at that point in Lewiston, in the Lewiston State, I'm sorry about that, spelled that wrong, State Normal School decided to establish a practice teaching program at Lapway, and this helped ease that teacher program when Lapway was first integrated. First year, those practice teachers lived in tents on the school grounds in Lapway. And so, that's pretty interesting that relationship's way back to 1909 in terms of teacher ed program. Mentioned the technical waiver. The language initially was offered through the anthropology department. 1989, the position that I kind of have grown into a little bit more. The Native American Student Advisor position was created. In 1998, the Nez Perce language was offered as heritage language through humanities. So that means Harold started in 1998. Yeah, so we're just appreciative of that. And Harold, in 2000 was our first advisory board created with the Nez Perce Tribe, and then the Pionkawas in 05. And so just some neat aspects there. So the other bullet that I didn't think to do was just a couple of our professors, Steve Evans, Al Marshall, should have put them in terms of bullets in some of the books that they created in collaboration with the tribe. Tribal members that have been really important as well, that, just that relationship as well. But I think those are just some of the neat highlights that I can think of there off the top of my head. Okay.
Can I
All right.
ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
What do you mean by integrated?
Integrated?
Yeah, you wrote there that 1909, the Rockaway School District was integrated.
Okay, so
That's a dumb question. I don't know
yeah,
what
I think
that
it was
means.
the farmers and the ranchers, the non-Indian students and the Nez Perce students went to school together.
Oh,
Okay, yeah,
sorry.
yeah. And then just needed who supporters of LCSC, the Circle of Elders there, our golf scramble from a few years ago, Jamie Olson with former President Fernandez, and if you see that in the purple, that's Shannon Wheeler, who's actually our tribal chair, women's leader panel, and then a language panel there to the right there. So just a lot of that relationship that happens. And cuts you out now. Thank you. Any questions or any thoughts?
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
So helpful.
Okay.
And where can we get that book?
I think right through the State Department of Ed, Johanna Jones. I can email
Okay.
out Johanna's information, and she may be able to get it almost for free or some kind of reduced. I don't know what rate it is, but it's just the Indian Ed Committee worked together with the tribes to create that. So it's real basic, but some good information.
Bob, you might mention that we're gonna teepees up tomorrow.
Oh,
Is that right?
TP set up 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Right out front.
So, yeah, Nez Perce students will be doing that, but bring your classes, come help.
Yeah, much quicker.
We gotta put those teepees up in between teaching our classes on socialism. Is that right?
Thank you for all the
Yeah.
information and the amazing resources too that you've provided us
Oh,
for
yeah.
further work. This is terrific.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
And like I said, any input would be more than appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have